had chosen to do Dark Side of the Moon years ago. You know, around the same time when I picked Master of Puppets and Number of the Beast, this was another one that was on my top 5 list. I mean, it was inevitable that we would do a Floyd album. And we've been doing Floyd covers for years. We've done Comfortably Numb and Hey You and Echoes and One of These Days. You know, it was inevitable that we would tackle a Floyd album. And to be honest, my favorite Floyd album is The Wall. In fact, The Wall is probably my favorite album of all time. So when thinking of which end to cover, I thought about The Wall for a little while, and I actually listened down to it for the first time in years, and it's just an exhausting experience. As much as I love it, and I think it's maybe the most intense album ever made, it's just an exhausting experience, and it would have been a major undertaking, not only for us, but for the audience to endure. So it became obvious that Dark Side of the Moon would have been the right choice. And you know, I'm glad that we're doing it here in London, of all places too. You know, it's really, this is where they're from, and it's really fitting to be doing it here tonight. Well, Dark Side of the Moon is one of the first concept albums, but it wasn't a concept in the traditional sense like Tommy or The Wall. It was more like a Sgt. Pepper or Octavarium kind of concept album where it's thematic, not necessarily a direct story, but it's a theme. And the theme of this is just, you know, madness and death and, you know, life and money, and, you know, it was stuff that Roger Waters was obviously fascinated with and always wrote about, politics, things like that. I think, you know, it's amazing to me how many Dream Theater fans aren't Pink Floyd fanatics like we are. We kind of assume that everybody grew up on Pink Floyd, but I guess our audience is a lot younger, because we noticed in Amsterdam there was a lot of people that didn't know this album. And we find that absolutely incredible. You know, being American, and in America it's like one of the, you know, most famous albums of all time. But we noticed in Amsterdam that there was a lot of people almost bored. And, you know, inevitably when picking an album, you can't possibly please everybody. When we did Metallica and Maiden, the prog fans probably hated it. When, you know, doing an album like this, the metal fans are probably gonna be bored to tears. You know, it's really kind of Pink Floyd in a way, as much as they're one of our biggest influences, they're really the antithesis of what Dream Theater is about. Dream Theater's adrenaline and playing and chops and technique, and Pink Floyd was just mood and vibe. It's amazing watching Jordan playing those Rick Wright parts and not, you know, or me just like playing completely, us and them, you know, it's like 7 minutes of this, you know, but we dig it, you know, it's so much in our blood, you know, this album and this band. We just began rehearsing it when we got here to begin this European tour. We just, you know, we purposely asked our booking agent to put any of the 2-night stands towards the middle or the end of the leg, so we would have the first half of the leg to rehearse it, and we've just been running them down at sound checks and stuff. Well, most DT fans know Teresa. You know, she was, she sang on Scenes from Memory and then also performed with us live at the Scenes from New York show. So she's got a nice history with us, and when, you know, when the idea of doing Dark Side came up, it was like obvious, you know, Teresa's got to do it, because those female vocals are so important to this album, and she's made for this album. I mean, she's just perfect. As far as the sax player goes, we had a different sax player in Amsterdam that we're gonna have tonight here in London. In Amsterdam, we used a guy named Mike Kidson, who plays with the Australian Pink Floyd show. And tonight in London, we're using Norbert Stachel, who plays with Roger Waters. And he's currently doing some touring with another Pink Floyd cover band called The Machine. So, you know, obviously both of these guys have played these songs a million times, and, you know, we're obviously perfect for the gig. I would say Floyd is the most universal of the three we've done so far, because with Maiden and Metallica, Jordan wasn't really a fan of those bands beforehand. With Floyd, I mean, everybody in Dream Theater is a Floyd fan and grew up with them. And there's a few more that are on my list to come that I think are universal favorites of the band as well. Well, our version is pretty faithful to the original. I mean, the original is just so classic, you can't really fuck with it too much, you know? It would be sacrilegious to do a reggae version of Money. But I think the biggest undertaking in covering this album was mainly for Jordan, because of all the samples and the sound effects, and it was real important that we get all that. And myself and him and Bert Baldwin, our LD and video guy, we sat down in America and went through the making of Dark Side of the Moon, the classic albums DVD, and went through there and pulled a lot of the video clips and pulled a lot of the samples and sound effects. And really, the biggest job was for Jordan and for Bert as well. You know, the presentation of this, it's not like the Maiden album or the Metallica album where it's like you just learn 8 songs and bang, you play them. You know, Dark Side of the Moon is a big presentation with video, with special guests, musicians joining us, and Jordan, you know, doing On the Run and all the sound effects. It's a big presentation. So I think it took a lot more work to get that side of it together, more so than it was with Maiden and Metallica. All of the video elements behind us throughout the whole show are Pink Floyd's actual videos that they used when they performed Dark Side of the Moon. And a lot of it I got from that Classic Albums DVD, and a lot of it I got from the moderator at my website, Weymouth. He actually came across a bootleg of all the video clips and gave it to me 6 months ago, kind of wink wink, hoping that we would be covering this album someday, and I was ecstatic because I knew, you know, 2 years ago that we were going to be doing this album. So when he gave me that bootleg, I was like, yes. This is Dream Theater's 4th and 5th time playing the Hammersmith Apollo, or the Hammersmith Odeon. And this is a legendary venue. You know, to me, it's so cool to play here. This is one of those places, like, you know, when we played Budokan in Tokyo, you know, there's just certain places that have such a history, and this place is definitely one of them. If you know, everything from Rush's different stages to Iron Maiden's classic Number of the Beast performance to Motorhead's No Sleep Till Hammersmith. Even the Beatles shot some of A Hard Day's Night here. So, I mean, this place has such history, and for us to come here and play 2 sold-out shows, it's real special for us.